Hey everybody, Facebook Live Nation. I'm Steve, this is Colin. We're from number 12 Cider, standing outside of our tap room. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're about to give you a tour and tell you a little bit about us and number 12 and our philosophy. But first, we thought we would, on this cold November day, show you our exterior space. We've got a nice patio with a couple fire pits going here, and we're getting ready for our cornhole league to start this evening.
You can see off in the distance there is Little Tomato. That's our resident food truck. It's always here. They kick out delicious and beautiful wood-fired pizzas. Definitely worth trying sometime. Turns out it goes great with cider.
And before we go inside, let's go check out our cornhole courts. We actually have cornhole league tonight, believe it or not, despite the snow. So we'll show you where that's going to happen. Hopefully people come. They're probably going to freeze their butt off tonight. But
we had a bit of shoveling before we got this going today.
All right. So, and our fearless camera person, Helena, is hopefully not going to trip and fall. Yeah, over here, we've got a nice little fire pit area and our cornhole courts, where you can play League when there isn't a pandemic.
And in weather like this, it's actually just about right for a fire pit. Come on down with a coat, maybe a hat, and sit by the fire. It warms you up quite well. Nice place to be.
All right, so we're going to go into our space now and check it out, and we're going to stop in the vestibule and grab a cider so that we can be drinking while we're touring.
Yeah, this is. We hope you're drinking at home as well, preferably a number 12, but whatever you fancy, go ahead and pour it now, because this isn't any fun if we're not drinking, right?
All right, here we go. Colin, what are we drinking here today?
We'll start our night with Voyage, which is our flagship product. This is one of our dry ciders. This one has changed recipes over the years, but this is where Steve and I started. This was the original number 12. It's beautiful dry. This is a combination of some Minnesota apples paired with some French bittersweets. Doggo is probably the star apple on this, and ends up being a really nice, balanced, complex dry cider. So Steve's going to go ahead and pour it, and we'll toast to you.
One for you. Smells good.
Cheers,
Cheers.
everybody.
Ah, that's good. Dry. Got a little bitter tannin in it.
That works.
We love that Voyage. Come on down for one. All right, we're going to have to put our masks on so we can go check out the space. Inside here, we have a lot of space. Under here is an area we call the lounge. It's kind of a cool little dimly lit area where sometimes we have live music. We got some couches, some chairs, and people tend to flock to that. That's a popular area to sit, but we can also rent that out. So sometimes we draw these drapes and let people use that as a private space.
So speaking of renting out, we actually have 3 different rental spaces, the lounge being one of them. We do a lot of bridal showers, birthday parties, baby showers, corporate events, all kinds of things. We're going to take you upstairs. We're going to follow Helene up there, and we'll show you another one of our spaces, which is called the Loft. And this is mid-century modern lounge up here. It's got a great vantage point of the tap room. As you can see, we're overlooking kind of the bird's eye view of the whole place. And on a busy night, this is the place to be.
It's comfortable. Usually, say 15 to 20-ish people in here, and a good place to hang out, have some pizza, have some cider.
And because of the elevation, it tends to be a little warmer, if you like that.
And nights like this, it's good. Yeah.
Moving on. So we're going to come over here and introduce you to our two bartenders, tell you a little bit about what we have on tap here before we go back into the production area. Hello. Hey, we got John and Nasia. They work here. They're great employees and very knowledgeable about the 14 ciders we have available right now, including this beautiful one. If you get a chance to try it, it's an ice cider that we had aging in a Calvados barrel for 12 months. It tastes wonderful.
And every cider is different on the menu. Come on in. Everyone's knowledgeable. They have lots of information to share with you. And they'd love to find a cider that would fit your fancy.
Let's move on back to the barrel room.
So we're walking through the main space right now. As you can see, tables are socially distanced and take COVID seriously.
Watch out.
Crossed out every other booth. And now we're coming into the back here. This is the barrel room. Barrel room is our third rentable space. And it is, as you can see, we have some dartboards here.
You're getting too far away there.
A nice space here. This is anywhere from, say, 20-ish people, maybe a little more or less than that. You're overlooking the production space, which is where we're heading next. That's a nice vantage point. We've got dartboards over here, which actually at this point with COVID we can't use those, but soon enough we'll be able to do that again.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to take you back into the production space right now. All right. So this is the production area. Colin is our production manager. So he is directly responsible for all the ciders that we make back here. We're kind of excited about a new thing we got. We acquired this press from Carlos Creek Winery. They were looking to get rid of it. It was free, but it took a lot of money to get it started.
Nothing's free, it turns out.
But anyway, we had a good friend of ours refinish the wood for the basket press, and turns out, as he said, it was African mahogany, very beautiful. So if you get a chance to check that out, you should.
So while we're back here, before we get too into the production process, I would like to switch gears on the cider.
Oh yeah, good call.
Someone planted those there for us, very strategically.
Strategery.
So we're switching over to something called Barrel 44. This is another one of our flagship ciders. We get a pretty interesting following on this one. This is a bourbon barrel-aged cider, and it's fortified. And it's a little bit higher alcohol. It's about 10.8% ABV, but it's got real nice bourbon notes. So if you love something like that, this is the one for you. Cheers.
Cheers.
This will be available in limited release cans coming up for the holidays, and along with Voyage and a couple other of our ciders. And
It's wonderful. We use Elijah Craig barrels. There's kind of a strong following for this one, so look for that. But Colin, I thought maybe we should talk a little bit about our history. What do you think?
let's do that. All right, yeah.
Colin and I go back a couple of years. We met when we were 8 years old,
And we're still talking to each other. Can you imagine?
we grew up in New Brighton, Minnesota, on the north end of Long Lake, and we actually were very good friends all the way from that point to today. Never was there a period of time where we weren't close friends. We went to Japan together once. Colin was a year ahead of me in school, but we remained tight even during school. And one of the things we did when we were really young kids was we actually did collect apples from the neighborhood trees, didn't we?
Yeah, we actually had a map of the neighborhood, which one of us has in our attic somewhere, I'm sure. But it was a map of the neighborhood where all the apple trees were located. We had quite the heist going on. I can remember questions of parents wondering where all the green apples came from in the fruit drawer in the fridge, and sneaking around stealing apples on our summer days. That was us.
No idea we would eventually start a cider making business at that time, but fond memories. So Colin went on to become a school teacher, elementary school, did that for about 25 years, and I went on to become a lawyer, which I've done for more than 20 years. And a few years ago, he and I both decided to take a serious left turn. In the 90s, he and I made beer together, and somewhere in the mid-90s, I decided to start experimenting with cider, and I became addicted to cider. One of the things that really reeled me in cider was the history of cider, and Colin and I are both really excited about that, but a lot of people don't know this, maybe a lot of the viewers here do, but in colonial America in the 1700s and the 1800s, that's what Americans drank. Everybody drank cider. Thomas Jefferson made cider. George Washington made cider. John Adams claimed that a tankard of cider every day for breakfast is one of the things that helped him live such a long life. And so it was fun to learn about that history and try to make cider in the spirit of that history. When Colin and I started making cider together, we started picking apples with friends and anybody we could meet. And on one of those years, we went up and picked apples with our friends Jim and Debbie Morrison, if you're listening. They at the time were not making cider, but they were pressing apples and making some beautiful fresh juice that became a product that someone convinced me to put into the state fair. At the time I had so many different ciders going on, I just numbered them. And number 12 won a blue ribbon at the state fair in 2012. Cheers, Jim and Debbie.
Yes. And the problem with that cider is we were in orchards in places that nobody really knew what the apples were. We were on ladders with cows underneath us, on fallow orchards. And so we don't really know how to recreate that recipe. So number 12 still to this day remains this ideal of this wonderful, beautiful champagne-like dry cider that we made that we're not really sure what went into it. So we're trying to recreate that.
One of the things that we did before we opened this tap room 2 years ago is that we started on a farm, the Deer Lake Orchard in Buffalo, Minnesota. The reason we connected with the Deer Lake Orchard was because as hobbyists and eventually in that business, we had been looking around for a orchard that would do custom pressings for us. So we were blending different apple varieties, experimenting with different apple varieties to see which ones made the best cider. And Yuri and Jill at Deer Lake Orchard, props to you guys if you're watching, were the ones that were willing to work with us on that. And many a late Thursday, we went out. It was always Thursday, right? Yuri had a day job, and he pressed on Thursdays after work. So he'd go out there at about 6 o'clock in the evening with 50 or 60 bushels of apples or 100, and he'd press with Yuri and take some home, and he'd keep the rest and sell it on the orchard. That's how we got started, Deer Lake Orchard. We got started with, we opened a little tasting room in the back of the barn that was
busy.
Very busy.
Turns out, yeah. Weekends we had lines out the door on most nice, summer days. We developed our pizza concept out there as well. We came up with, different concepts of dry and sweet and what people want to drink. So that was a real kind of learning ground for us to decide maybe what would go into the next step if we went that way. And we had a lot of people coming from Minneapolis at the time. It was about an hour west of Minneapolis. And we just kept thinking, what if we could do this closer to the city where a lot of people are coming from? What would that look like? And that got us thinking a little bit about where we are now, which is the tap room in North Minneapolis.
Yeah, so Colin, maybe we should talk a little bit about our philosophy of cider making, right?
Sure.
We were blending apples, different apple varieties at Deer Lake Orchard, and we've been very dedicated attendees at CiderCon. Hopefully some of you have been there. Fun, exciting adventure. But I think Colin and I will both say on any given day, on any given tour of the cidery, that the things that define a cider, that make the best cider, are the kind of apples you use and the kind of yeast that you use. Right?
That sounds right, yeah. And we like to play with both of those factors to create a lot of variety in our cider. So when we're thinking about blending apples, we rarely take a single apple and make a cider out of it. There's a few occasions where we do that, but mostly you need to blend things to get a better balance, a better level of complexity and things like that. So we're looking for sugar level, we're looking for tannins, which gives you great mouthfeel, complexity. We're looking for acid, which kind of has a nice, mouthfeel, zing to it. And then we like aromatics too, because we want the cider to smell well. So we're looking for apples that kind of fill those categories when we blend something. And even then, it doesn't always work out. We spend a lot of time experimenting and mixing things and trying some others. And eventually we'll settle on something we like. But sometimes it takes longer than others.
Yeah, so since we opened here, we've had more than 50 different ciders. We're actually down today at 14. At our anniversary party a couple weeks ago, we were at 17 different ciders. And I would say to anybody that's thinking about coming here, with this philosophy we have, all of those, each and every one of those 17 different ciders was distinctive. Like, it was different. You would not mistake it for one of the others. And that's because we're using different apple varieties and different yeasts on just about all of them. Colin could bore you all with the names of like 40 different yeast types, but we really do, whenever we get an opportunity to try a new apple or a new blend of apples, we almost always find a way to ferment that out on the first occasion with different yeast varieties, because it's amazing how different the outcomes are.
Yeah.
And some, depends on what you're trying to do with it. Some yeasts work better with some apple varieties and worse with other apple varieties, right?
Yeah, and if you start looking at all the factors of apples and or yeast, and what kind of complexity you can, just using those two factors, and sometimes even layering yeast on the same cider, where you might take half the juice in one tank with one yeast and half in the other tank with a different yeast, blend them at the end. You can do that with several yeasts. So suddenly you have a lot of possibilities with cider. And cider, in many ways, like beer, people think of stouts and pilsners and ales and IPAs and whatever. Cider can be that complex as well. We think we're showing that here. We'd like to show a range of what cider can be, whether it's different levels of sweetness or dry, or cloudy or hazy or clear. We have some barrel-aged things. We have things like ice cider, Ciders. We've got a lot to offer. It's pretty fun to come in and try.
One thing to be clear, although we are cider snobs, I admit, the tap room, number 12, both in the tap room and the products that we're offering in liquor stores, we're trying as hard as we can to be accessible to everybody. So what does that mean? We can have fun too. can't just sort of turn your nose up and smell a fancy dry cider. Once in a while, you just got to drink something refreshing or fun. That one of our most popular products this summer was the cider slushy. Helena, props to Helena on that one.
Thank you.
We had a nice warm summer, as you may all recall, and we got Helena. Well, Colin and I were up in Canada fishing. Helena acquired a slushy machine. And we came back and suddenly we had cider slushies. And they were good. They were good.
They were good. And they were our best seller most of the summer.
When the cat's away.
That's right.
I have a question here from Taylor Elizabeth. She's asking, how many different ciders are you working on at one time in the tanks?
That's a great question. So all of our tanks are full right now, and we actually are doing a few less ciders with larger quantities of each one. So right now in the tanks we have Black Market, which is our black currant cider. We have Voyage. We have Union. We have a couple ice ciders and barrels. We have our heirloom apples from Falls Orchard. We have just some organic honey crisp apples.
We got
just
the-
doing a little experiment on.
We got the
brandy.
seed savers in the
We have
cooler.
seed savers in the cooler. Okay, wait a minute.
Oh, wait, we got
Taylor,
the-
sorry about this. Let's get a little out of hand.
We got the Avenga stuff.
See, this is the way it goes around here. It ends up getting, we keep thinking like one more. What could we do with this? What could we do with that? And sometimes it does get a little bit out of hand.
It gets out of hand. You know, like our friends over at Minneapolis Cider, they make some brandy out of their ciders. We do the same. We have a couple of brandy infused products. One is right now that's topical today is the Hot Toddy. That's a hot cider with a shot of our brandy in it. But we also have a nice French oak barrel there full of our apple brandy. It's been sitting there for about a year. We haven't cracked that out yet. And we also have a Nolo as one of our products, a Pommeau style product sitting in the barrel.
Yes.
So we probably got 20 things back here.
It's probably true when you start counting them and adding them up. Yeah.
You know, some of these take time, and once, you know, the specialty products, the small batch products, we're not in a hurry for them. Like Colin mentioned
The heirloom from Falls Orchard.
the Falls Orchard heirloom. That one we're projecting, that one might come out maybe about this time next year. Some of the ciders, just a quick and dirty, because a lot of people here watching Facebook Live are probably familiar with the cider making process. But you put the apples in a press, them, you get the juice. Put the juice in a tank, you add yeast, and you ferment it. That takes, at room temperature, about 2 weeks, right? Then Colin and I will typically rack our ciders. That means move it from one tank to another. And that gets rid of what we call the lees, the sediment that forms at the bottom. And it goes through what we call a malolactic fermentation. We're talking about having a drinking game every time somebody mentioned malolactic. Malolactic is the secondary fermentation of cider, or the must, as we call it, as it's fermenting. And that is a conversion of that sharp malic acid that you get, especially in a lot of Minnesota apples, into lactic acid. And that gives you some kind of special notes like butterscotch or buttery flavors. And mostly for us, it mellows out that high acidity, right?
Yeah, and I do like a butterscotch note in my cider.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So that's why in those specialty products like the Falls Orchard heirloom apples, we're gonna let that one sit for a while.
And we have some things like our Seed Savers Heritage blend in the cooler right now. It's fermenting. It's a wild ferment, fermenting at 38 degrees. It's going to take 6 months before that's fully fermented. And we're perfectly happy to wait. We've done this now. This is the third year on this product, and it's delicious.
speaking of waiting, we have a couple questions about when Barrel 44 will be available in cans and cider. Guys, I know we have it produced. Do you have a timeline on that?
Yes. We've had a lot of questions about that, and we have already canned it. It's in blank cans right now. Next week we're going to get the labels, and our distributor is going to pick it up from us in a week and a half. So I'm thinking that Barrel 44 is going to reach liquor stores by Thanksgiving, and I would watch that carefully if I was you, because we're only releasing one pallet of it, and that's probably going to go pretty quick. So.
Okay, and speaking of Thanksgiving, we have a couple comments and questions here about giving some advice on how to pair cider with favorite foods, and primarily thinking about Thanksgiving and a cider complement to any Thanksgiving feasts that are coming up.
Well,
let me just share.
I say Colin and Helena, you're on.
So we've done our cider at Thanksgiving before, and I'll just say we have 3 great ciders that work really well with Thanksgiving. First of all is the Voyage, which is a wonderful dry cider. It makes a beautiful toast to start your evening. So people are gathering around the table, you're sitting down, you start with a nice, beautiful dried cider, champagne-like, to celebrate. With dinner, with the turkey, Black Market, which is our black currant cider, is a wonderful accompaniment to all those goodies that you'll be eating. It's got kind of a sharpness to it. It's dry. It's palate cleansing. It's not sweet, which is great. It's semi-dry, so it's got this real palate cleansing effect when you're eating food. And then finally, with pumpkin pie or desserts, we have a product. Well, I don't know if we have that anymore, but Helix was a great. It's got chestnut, crab apples in there. It had just a little touch of honey in that. And
Probably gonna have to go to Janikin on that one.
Probably Janikin.
I mean, if you were able to get some of our ice cider, which you're not.
Oh,
Come to the tap room.
Union,
You gotta come
though.
to the tap room for
Yes,
that. You have to come to the tap room for
Bring
dessert.
your pumpkin pie in here. Yeah, that'd be better.
Union is a nice companion. That's a nice sweet to finish the evening.
Oh, there you go. Union is fantastic, and it's got that little
Yeah.
dessert characteristic. By the way, if you ever get invited by Colin and Helena to have dinner over at their house, accept it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Pressure's
Cider
on.
pairs well with food. I generally, personally, like a little drier, just because I like the palate cleansing effect. I think it pairs well with food, dry cider.
So one other thing that we have coming that people might want to know about before we close up here, we are going to do a special release. We have a kind of harkening back to our original release, Sparkling Dry, if some of you remember that, in the 750 bottle condition. We have a new product coming out this year. It's only 60 cases. It's called Legacy. It's a bottle conditioned, champagne style celebration cider. We're finishing up the work on the label right now, and that one's going to be out in early December. And don't expect it to last long. So look for Legacy.
And you can get that. There may be a few liquor stores out there that might have that. Probably the main ones, France 44, Cerdix, Yellow Jail, Steeple, things like that. But we'll also have it at the tap room, so you can come on in here, probably get a little better deal, get it from us. And it's a really nice, dry, champagne-like. It's great for a toast at the holidays. There's some Arkansas Black in there, old and russet, Prairie Spy, a little bit of doggo crab apple. Kind of has a little bit of a yellow mango something like that. But it'd be good for the holidays. So come on in and try that.
Roxanne wants to know, how do you guys agree on the names of the ciders? And also we have a request for 2 cases for, I'm going to have to scroll back. 2 cases are for Legacy. Request to hold back.
All right, gotcha.
We
If
can
that's
do that.
Roxanne, I
We
think
can
you
do
can
that.
handle that.
But how do you guys come up with the names for the cider, and how do you agree?
Roxanne, Colin and I joke that we disagree on a lot of things, but somehow or another we find a way to get to names. Sometimes Colin has the creative genius behind the names, and mostly we talk to each other and maybe get third parties involved and see what clicks.
And we, a lot of our names, there's a little nugget of history in there somewhere, whether it's something about one of the apples that's in it, something about maybe the history of how we made it or where we purchased or sourced those apples, or maybe an experience that we've had related to that cider. So there's usually a nugget of history in each one. Sometimes gets tedious, I would say, after you've had 50 ciders
Yeah.
in
It usually involves
first 2
drinking.
years. But in the end, and when we really can't agree on something, we usually reach out to Helena or someone else to get a third party involved.
A mediator. I will say, just as an example, Voyage kind of relates to the lineage it has, and that relates to the blue ribbon winning number 12. It's not the same product, and it has morphed over the years as we've tried to modify and perfect it. But we both like the concept of Voyage because that product has taken a voyage. Barrel 44. You know what? The first batch of Barrel 44 was made in a barrel we got from France 44. So there you go. That was
Black market
doesn't feel so creative if I say it out loud.
Black market was the scarcity of black currant because that's a key element in that cider.
Yeah, we felt
there-
like we
there
had to
was
get it from the black market.
Yeah, there was a 100-year ban on black currant bushes in the U.S. So it was that scarcity concept, and the fact that this was kind of a something that had to be dealt with on a different level in the market. So anyway, there's usually a nugget of some kind.
So we'll take any more questions, but just to wrap things up, appreciate everybody that's following us, everybody that's coming in. It's been a tough year, and it's really great to see familiar faces. Colin and I, and Helena really for that matter, are here virtually every day, and we'd love to see you down here. It always helps for us to sell more product to our distributor. If our product isn't in your liquor store, go ahead and ask for it. You can order our product if you're out of state. There might be people from out of state watching us right now. You can hop on our website and actually order it shipped to you. That's kind of cool. Some people, it's not convenient for them to come here. You can actually order swag, t-shirts, hats. We got a couple of nice things coming along for that. So we really appreciate everybody's support, and thanks for tuning in today.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.